Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here for thedailysheeple.com, and this is your news shot. And I have to tell you, I was kind of excited to see this today in Economic Policy Journal. They're highlighting an op-ed written by Rand Paul, and I got to tell you, I've always been a big fan of Ron Paul. Rand Paul always kind of, there was always something about him that was kind of neoconish. And in recent years, I've seen a shift a little bit away from a lot of the neocon behavior, you know, the going for Iranian sanctions and everything else when, you know, his father talked about how sanctions were counterproductive, and they absolutely are. They absolutely have no productive ability. Everything is destructive with sanctions because really, who is it that suffers when you force sanctions on a country? It's the small guy, the people. It's not the dictator or despot in power. They don't feel the sanctions. It's the small guy, the guy that's looking to try and feed his family, that can't feed his family. Those are the ones that suffer. Well, Rand Paul decided to let it go. And he said, what is our world coming to? He says, the biggest threat America faces is not the enemy without, but the enemy within. As America's memory of the horrors of socialism fades, some are tempted by the false appeal of socialism. American youth seem open to the allure of a doctrine that places fairness above merit. American politicians now openly call for European-style socialized medicine. What is our world coming to? Now, while America drifts towards the socialism of Western Europe regulates itself in the direction of Eastern Europe. And meanwhile, the failed Soviet satellites of Eastern Europe yearn for the freedom and prosperity that made America great. For decades, the economists of free markets have demolished the arguments of the socialist. Not only did socialism intertwine itself with the Soviet gulag and the Holocaust of National German Socialism, but socialism just plain didn't work, and millions of people starved to death because of it. The Soviet Empire fell without a bullet being fired because the engine of capitalism defeated the sputtering and defective motor of socialism. So let me stop there for a second, because a lot of people are drifting towards socialism, I believe, because of crony capitalism that takes place here in the United States. See, we don't have a pure form of capitalism. If we did, it would be a little bit more palatable for everybody in America. But unfortunately, that's not what we have. We have crony capitalism, and then we have fascism. And fascism is the coming together of the private sector and government. You see this all over the place now with companies like Google and the government being hand in hand. YouTube, you know, a subsidiary of Alphabet. But no, I mean, you can see how these companies, Facebook, Twitter, your social media giants, Amazon, the Economic Council that started out and all this kind of stuff, you can see how they are working with the government to push the narrative and social engineer. Julian Assange just recently talked about that, about how this soft censorship is nothing more than social engineering and controlling the masses. That's what it is. It is a kind of correction, if you will, to the freedom that was experienced with the internet and with social media and the ability to spread information. It neutered the government and the mainstream media and big business's capability of controlling the narrative. So they had to try to do it somehow. Well, let's do it through what they call hate speech. Well, what they're going to come to find out is you can't do that without a defined term that says this is hate speech, and then apply that definition to all the content. If you don't do that, then that's a form of discrimination, which is illegal in the United States. Now, Rand Paul continues. He says, what defects cause socialism to fail? Well, Hayek used the word conceit to describe the flaw inherent in socialism. In Greek, I'm told the word is aparsi, or arrogance. It's precisely an elitism or form of arrogance that underlies socialism. Socialism relies upon the belief that planners are smarter than the rest of us, that a complicated economy requires central government planning. Hayek described that fatal conceit of socialist thought when he said that centrally planned policies are necessary for market efficiency. that individuals are incapable of spontaneously arriving at a marketplace that benefits buyers and sellers. Hayek continued, he said, the curious task of economics is to demonstrate to men how little they really know about what they imagine they can design. Now, no one person or Politburo or people can ever possess as much knowledge as can be instantaneously gathered and processed by what Hayek called the separate differing information of millions, which is precipitated in prices that serve to guide further decisions. The fatal conceit of socialists is their belief that economic production requires deliberate arrangement by the government. Socialism crushes the free distribution of knowledge. America is threatened because we've begun to forget what made us great. America began to forget that socialism doesn't work. And America's survival is not dependent on the outcome of some misbegotten battle in the mountains of Afghanistan, but rather is dependent on the will of the people to be free from the arrogance of big government, aka socialism. He concludes, he says, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing a statesman being born when we desperately need one. And so Rand Paul really kind of spells it out as far as socialism not working. So when you look at a single payer system, let's just take a look at California. California is the 7th largest economy in the country if you take it as its own entity. Now, should they secede and they go about trying to fund a single payer system, it's going to cost in the billions of dollars, and as their population expands, it will get into the trillions of dollars. And when that happens, I mean, you're talking about a major chunk of your taxes going towards medical care. Why? Because the costs haven't come down. Now, there are some things that you can do that, to me, make total sense. And that is put a cap. You just pass a cap on how much they can mark this stuff up. You know, cost plus 100%. You know, that's what you do. Whatever it costs you plus your overhead, double it. And that's what you can charge the pharmacies or your distribution centers and cap the profits. That's what we used to have across, you know, your commodities, like your gasoline, your electricity. It was all regulated. And you had to regulate it because if you didn't regulate it, people took advantage of it. Speculation ran wild, which is exactly what we're seeing here. Now, I would love to say let the free market handle it, but unfortunately, there are too many socialists out there that are going to snuff that out. So, while I would love to see a free market, I don't think it's really going to happen. This push towards a single-payer system, I don't think is going to make it. I do, however, and I would recommend that people support doctors that are going on their own away from the insurance complex and going with, say, like a concierge model or another model to be able to support them and to use that free market alternative to really turn things around. And we might be able to do it that way, but we need a lot more support and a lot more education on this. I'm Joe Joseph. This was thedailysheeple.com's News Shot. Feel free to comment below and visit our website at thedailysheeple.com. Have a great day.